So this morning, while I was doing my daily chores, something hit me right between the eyes, and I decided I wanted to share it with you today. And I would have realized it sooner had my mind not been clouded by the Roman calendar. Of course, every Jew who lives outside of Israel, with the exception of some certain Orthodox Jews, or maybe certain Hasidic Jews, would be an exception. But there is something here that I did not realize, and it has to do with the Hebrew calendar. Sixth trumpet. The sixth, this is Revelation 9, verse 13. Six messengers sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before Elohim, saying to the sixth messenger which had the shofar, loose the four messengers which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the four messengers were loosed, which to prepare reaching a place of time, an hour, a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men, in order to slay the third part of men. So it appears that this hour, a day, and a month, and a year was a prelude for the war that would kill a third part of men. Now, if I were cued into the Hebrew calendar, as most practicing Jews, let me rephrase that, because I know some Hellenized Jews, like the liberal Jews, would consider themselves practicing too. I'm talking about Jews who adhere daily to the Hebrew calendar as opposed to the Roman calendar. And if they would read this particular passage in verse 15 of Revelation 9, they would recognize something about this. This appears to be a leap year on the Hebrew calendar. Why am I saying this? Because every 19 years on the Hebrew calendar there is an Adar 2, a second month of Adar. Well, that occurred in this particular year. We should have the number of the year in the Hebrew calendar. But what I'm saying here is this: you have an Adar 1 and an Adar 2, a leap year, an added month. And if I were really super adherent to the Hebrew calendar, I would probably guess a day and also an hour. I believe this is in reference to a leap year. Now, think about that for a minute. Now I want to go ahead and continue. As If you haven't figured it out by now, things are moving very fast on the nuclear warfare front. So, TASS, Russian news agency, Federation Council approves ratification of accords on accepting new entities into Russia. On Sunday, Russia President Vladimir Putin submitted a draft federal constitutional laws and international agreements on accepting new entities into Russia to the State Duma. The Russia Federal Council, the upper house of parliament, has unanimously approved laws in the ratification of 4 international agreements on accepting Donetsk, Lugansk, and as well as Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions into Russia. Now, yesterday and days before, they've got driven out of almost all of these, Russia did. And this region right here is where they're fighting over Europe's largest nuclear power plant. The documents were signed in Moscow on September 30th. Okay? The international agreements include the establishment of borders, new constituent entities, saying that the borders of the republics and the regions will be the same as those existed on the day of their creation and ascension into Russia. International accords specify that their borders with other countries will be regarded as Russia's state borders. Let's go to the next one. It is the last part of the headline that you should take notice of. Vladimir Putin signs, this is obviously Greek, World News 24/7 is a Greek publication, and this is a translation, Google translation. Signs the dissolution of Ukraine tomorrow. This was on September 29th. It takes 4 million Russians and 70% of the GDP, Ukraine's GDP. Russian media, World War III is possible beginning in October. Okay? The biggest border change in Europe since World War II. What you should see and what you should understand here, everybody knows, everybody who's in the military knows full well that World War III with nuclear weapons is about to happen. And these people here, even the Russians themselves, know it begins, as they say, in October. So, Putin will ratify the border change on Friday, a decision that will escalate the war and could even lead to the use of nuclear weapons if Ukraine continues to attack territory Moscow now is considered Russian. Well, almost a whole week has gone by, and the Russians have been the Ukrainians have been driving the Russians out of those areas, making the Russians look like fools. So the way I see it is the Russians are in a trap. They are damned if they do and damned if they don't. So they have to do. I don't know if I have every single one of the articles that I want, but it appears that Russia is going to use tactical nukes against Ukraine in order to put the fear of Russia in Ukraine. Now, There's a AOL article that I will get into in just a minute that shows what the United States is going to do should Russia launch tactical nukes in Ukraine. Now, while all this is going on, you have the Turkish-Greek conflict beginning to take shape. And that would be a whole video by itself. I'm not going to go into that at this time. But if you go on this particular website, and beheading doesn't mean beheading as English people speaking know it. In Greek, it's just a firing of certain heads of the Russian ministry. But if you look at these headlines, you can see that absolute insanity, craziness has taken over the world. And this particular article right here, Medvedev says that if Zelensky does not stop, then a significant part of the Ukrainians will disappear. Obviously referring to using of nukes. Okay? So, let's go to the next one. The situation is out of control. Massacre in Moscow for the defeat of Lenin and General Lapin are set up 2 meters apart. Dozens of nuclear Aleksandrs are transported to the border with Ukraine. Okay? Now, expert, if Putin uses nukes, U.S. could wipe out Russian forces in Ukraine. And notice how careful they are with explaining the strategy. The U.S. does not want to get in a nuclear war with Russia, and quite frankly, Russia does not want to get into a nuclear war with the United States. Now, the idea of launching tactical nukes into Ukraine is not only to strike the fear of Russia into Ukraine, but also into Europe and the United States. You know, make Ukraine a whipping boy. So, if Russian President Putin makes good on his threat to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, the United States would likely respond with a sweeping economic embargo, combined with a massive conventional attack on Russian military positions that could wipe out the Russian president's invading military forces, says Joseph Siricione, a national security analyst and leading expert on nuclear warfare. The U.S. and NATO could destroy the Russian forces in Ukraine in a matter of days, says Siricione, author of the book Nuclear Nightmare, Securing the World Before It's Too Late. Well, to the Italian book writer, this world as we know it is over. It's finished. It's done. The goose is cooked. Actually, the goose is burnt. He says that would be the end of the Russian army in this. But he acknowledges that such a direct U.S. or NATO military strike against the Russian military, even in response to the Russian use of tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield, could spiral out of control, you think? There are no good responses once you start down the nuclear path. It's extremely difficult to terminate it for the same reason that a poker player losing a hand is hesitant to fold. They keep thinking there's one more move they could make, one more bet that they could raise to try to cause the other side to fold. And this particular synopsis here is correct. Now, He says that if Putin were to actually make good on his threat to go nuclear, it would not be a large-scale thermonuclear bomb attack. Well, not initially. But a more limited deployment of tactical weapons, far more limited in scope, but still a major unprecedented escalation. He says that U.S. military response would not be limited to the battlefield. There would be also likely a sharp escalation in psychological warfare, such as was used to unnerve Iraqi generals on the eve of the U.S. invasion of that country. The U.S. was calling Iraqi generals in their homes and telling them to stand down, and they did that for two reasons. One, to let them know we know where you live. Two, we can reach out and touch you. Alright, so anyway, even the White House National Security Advisor has warned that the Russians there would suffer catastrophic consequences if they used nuclear weapons, but he did not specify what they would be. Okay. Now, while all this is going on, go ahead and play this little video. It's a computer-generated video. It's not very long. It's only a minute long, and you can hear it for yourself.
State of emergency has been declared with a last-minute announcement. Invading Russia has officially announced that it has begun preparations for nuclear attacks. The land was officially taken for the nuclear attack mentioned by Vladimir Putin in recent days, and a nuclear-armed submarine named Belgorod was launched off the White Sea. Vladimir Putin, who gathered a reaction from the whole world with the invading attacks on the territory of Ukraine, launched a nuclear submarine with a monster weapon developed capable of creating a tsunami of 1,600 feet in size. Poseidon is known as a weapon developed with the capacity.
So these weapons that are on this particular submarine are capable of generating a tsunami of 1,600 whatever feet in size? Now, I heard, I can't remember where, I read that they threatened to use this against the British. Let's continue.
Capacity to create a nuclear tsunami of 1,600 feet. If Poseidon is tested in the near future, this will be recorded as a move by Putin to scare the West. It is not known where the route of the Belgorod nuclear submarine belonging to the Russian Navy, which began its mission to the White Sea. Let's see how these attacks, which are an emergency situation for the whole world, will turn out.
Alright. So there's that video. Now I'm not going to play this video. I don't think I will. I don't know, maybe I should. Spine-chilling video of a convoy transporting equipment for Russia's nuclear forces. Nuclear military train ordered to the front line, obviously to Ukraine, by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Grinding battle of attrition in Ukraine. An ominous nuclear operation in the works. Train linked to a unit of operation storage facilities for nukes. Reports also suggested that the Belgorod nuclear submarine has been deployed in the Arctic Circle. Do you see the handwriting on the wall yet? Now, there's something that I want to do while it's on my mind. I want to go to, maybe I should just go ahead and go to Revelation. Well, I was just here, right? And we talked about how an hour and a day and a month and a year is actually a leap year on the Jewish calendar. And I have shown you that We're right in a leap year right now. Because there were 2 Adars this year. Do you see what's going on? Can you tell that something is up? Now let's go to Zechariah 14. This is all caused by Jehovah. How does he do it? We just read about it in Revelation 9. The 4 messengers which were bound, tied up in the river Euphrates were loosed. So, when it says here, in Zechariah 14 verse 12, and this shall be the plague, that Jehovah will smite the people that fought against Jerusalem. So it's a plague from Jehovah. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And on that day there will be a great tumult, confusion, disquietness from Jehovah. Disturbance, panic, tumult, confusion. And then we need to go to, I knew I missed one. So it is in Luke 21. Great panic, confusion. Okay. There shall be portents in the sun and in the moon. I've gone over that many times. This is in reference to Joel 2, the last couple of few verses. And in the stars, and upon the earth, Sunoke of the Gentiles, with perplexity, confusion. Alright, Sunoke, distress, anguish, and anxiety, hard tension. And this word, perplexity, anxiety, quandary. It sounds a lot like confusion. Now let's look at this verse a little bit more. The sea and the waves roaring. Tsunamis. Tsunamis. Now, we need then to read carefully, very carefully, men's hearts failing them for fear, panic. What was the word that was used in Zechariah 14? A great tumult, confusion, discomfited, and panic. It's the same event, folks. And he said, this that they're going to do to each other is a plague from Jehovah. Okay? A great panic shall be among them, and they will lay hold every one the hand of his neighbor. We are witnessing that right now as we speak, with Russia laying hold on the hand of their neighbor, and now we see that Turkey wants to lay a hand on their neighbor, Greece. And last night, North Korea fires another ballistic missile over Japan. And his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. And Yehuda will also be fighting at Jerusalem. So get ready for a great war happening with Judah, Yehuda, in Jerusalem as well during this time. And when with smoke all clears, the wealth of all the Gentiles round about shall be gathered together, gold, silver, and apparel of great abundance. To where? To Israel. Now, let's go back here. And we see right here, it is obvious that this is in reference to nuclear weapons. And you see here in Zechariah 14, it is obvious. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away. This is obviously referring to nuclear weapons. And it will be as a result of this great tumult from Jehovah, loosening the 4 messengers which are bound in the great river Euphrates, to prepare possibly for a leap year, which is this year is a leap year, for to slay 1/3 of men, and even the Russians say beginning in October. Folks, it should not be difficult to understand the situation that the world is in. In Daniel 12, King James Version and other versions got it all wrong. Verse 1, and at that time shall Michael stand up. Yes, during this time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which stands for the children of Daniel's people. At that time will be a time of sorrow, distress, the same wording as in Luke 12. As in Luke 21. The great distress, not such as never since there was a nation. That's not what it says. King James Version people inserted those words that don't belong in there. There shall be a time of distress upon the Goy. The next word is Goy. This is specifically a time of distress upon the Gentiles. We look in Luke and it says, alright, we look in Matthew 24 and it says, I think that's what it says here. No, it's in Luke. I gotta go find it. Oh, yeah. Distress upon what? Gentiles. It's the same thing. Distress upon the Gentiles. We have it, the beautiful picture painted in front of us. We know what's about to happen. Just take a look around you and read the news. And the power of the sky shall be shaken. Now this is probably both in reference to nuclear weapons and meteors falling from the sky. And right after, just as soon as this starts happening, listen to me carefully, as soon as this starts happening, they're going to see, then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Is it that difficult to understand? Is it really? If you listen to the Christian narrative of Cyril, the Catholic, in his 15th catechetical lecture, starting in verses 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you would be confused. You would say it doesn't match. Of course it doesn't match with his lies. Because Cyril said the very opposite thing that Paul said in Romans 11, verses 25 through 29. He said exactly the opposite. So when you see these things begin to come to pass, when you see them launching nuclear weapons, when you see them launching tsunami weapons, and when you see more than just nuclear weapons fall out of the sky, when you see these things commence, go hide in your cave and pray for death, right? Wrong. Maybe that's what the Christian Gentiles will do. Maybe that's what the Muslim Gentiles will do. But you, O Jew, you Jew who was forced to wear the yellow star, who was forced to wear rags for nearly 2,000 years, you look up at the sky and lift up your heads because your redemption draws near. We are this close. We are this close, folks. And I had this idea in my head that somehow it would take longer. This is the reason why you should always have an open mind to the truth. Always. People get stuck in a false narrative because of laziness. Do not be lazy, folks. Pay attention. Open your ears and your eyes and your mind to the truth. Make sure. Now, so, I want to go to, is it What just happened here? Okay, hold on. I want to go to Revelation 10. There's something that is written in verse 7. But in the days of the voice of the seventh messenger, when he is about to sound. Now, we who speak English will say just before he sounds. That is correct. The mystery of Jehovah will be completed as he declared to his servants the prophets. And that brings me to this one again. Now, I have suggested many times before that the first seal appears to be Rome, and this one right here appears also to be Rome, but it appears to this might be from, I would say that this is during Rome, right after the fall of Jerusalem, or during the fall of Jerusalem and after. And this one right here may be Constantine and after. And during this time, this era of time, you obviously, during the Dark Ages, there was a period of famine and disease and death. There was a time also where there was 1/3 of the light was gone from the day. I did a video on that in the one of the trumpet sounds. Okay, and so all of this has already occurred. I'm not saying so it is no longer yet to occur. There's going to be even more death coming, in fact. But this right here, when he had opened up the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them which were slain for the word of Jehovah and for the testimony which they held. Now, I've speculated on this before, and I think I know the answer. This is the disciples of Yehoshua. How long, they cry with a loud voice, how long, Jehovah holy and true, do you not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? Remember, it was the Romans who did this, who killed them. Now, Stephen was killed by the Jews, but the wrath on the Jews occurred nearly 2,000 years ago. There is more wrath to come upon the wrath comes upon the Jew first and then to the Gentile, just as glory and honor comes to the Jew first and to the Gentile, then to the Gentile. White robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said that they should rest for a little season until their fellow servants and their brethren that they should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. And I believe that these are the two witnesses that are going to be killed, which you read about in Revelation 11. And I beheld when he opened up the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. So while these tsunamis, nuclear weapons being launched, there's going to be a great earthquake from Jehovah. The sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Yoel 2, last few verses. And what does Yoel 2 say? All who proclaim the name Jehovah will be delivered in Mount Zion, Jerusalem. Now, the Christians, they have their own false salvation. They say that they will go to heaven and stay there. Nope. There will be some remaining, and we don't know where this earthquake is going to take place. I would suggest that it would be around Europe, but not excluding the United States. There's a reason why I say this, because there are not a whole lot of Jews left in Europe, but there are more. There are twice as many, more than twice as many Jews and in United States alone than there are in Israel proper. So those all have to be brought in, which is the reason why I believe it says that the ships of Tarshish first in Isaiah 60 verse 7, 8, and 9. There will be flying ships. It says so. And the stars of the sky fell into the earth. Now these can be nuclear weapons and meteors. Like a fig tree casts her untimely figs when she is shaken with a mighty wind, and heaven separated, parted asunder, as a scroll when it is rolled together. And the mountains and the coastlands were shaken. And if you are very studious about earthquakes, you'll know that the bigger the earthquakes, the more land moves. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains. So it appears that they launched this nuclear activity, and then something out of the sky and on the earth is a greater wake-up call than even the nuclear weapons. Because these men and all the bondmen and every freeman hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said unto the mountains and the rocks, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne, that is Jehovah Elohim, and from the wrath of the Lamb. So now they see these two, because the throne has come down. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Now, and after these things I saw 4 messengers standing on the 4 corners of the earth, because the throne is coming down to do what? To save Israel. To save Israel from this, what mankind is about to do. Mankind is about to wipe himself off the face of the earth. So this must be curtailed. This nuclear annihilation that they are about to do must be curtailed. Holding the 4 winds, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor the sea, nor any tree. And I saw another messenger ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Elohim, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 messengers, to whom it was said to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the heads, until we have sealed the servants of Elohim in their foreheads. Now, I have chided with people for so long about claiming that this 144,000 is somehow the church, when it plainly speaks about untouched, undefiled men out of each and every, including Dan, the tribes of Israel. And I have shown the error of the King James translation when they mention Joseph and Manasseh. Joseph is Ephraim and Manasseh, and then they left out Dan. But it says right here, And I heard a number of them which were sealed. Wait a minute. Sealed. Yes. 144,000 of every. Not every tribe but Dan. Doesn't say that. It says every tribe. And you see where King James Version screwed up. So it has to be you eliminate Manasseh because Joseph encompasses Manasseh and Ephraim. So you have to put Dan back in order to get your 144,000. Yonah did not make that mistake. It was the translators. Okay? Then after all these 12,000 of each of the tribes that were sealed, there is this. And after that, not after that, among them were. You see what they did? You see what they did, folks? Not after, among, with them, with among them, in the company of them were, because these 144,000 were selected to represent this group of people. A great multitude, which no man can number, that were gathered out of the Gentiles. They gathered out of all the Gentiles, kindreds, peoples, and tongues. Well, they would include the Jews that are still living, speaking the English language, living in the outer reaches of the Americas. And they all were gathered, standing before the throne, standing before the Lamb, and they were clothed with white robes, and they had palms in their hands. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation, or Yeshua, from Elohim, who sits upon the throne, and from the Lamb. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention, and I wanted to get off my chest, is you people, Messianic types, insist on using the name Yeshua, or the word Yeshua, as the name for the Moshiach. Yeshua is what he does, what he is. He is salvation. But his name is Yehoshua, which means Jehovah's salvation. Do not get what his title and what he does confused with his name. He has a name. Do not disrespect that name. Verse 13, and one of the elders answered and said unto me, What are these which are arrayed in white robes, and where did they come from? And I said to them, Sir, you know. And he said to me, These are those who were taken out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Well, they will make their robes white in the blood of the Lamb when the Lamb comes. They will recognize the Lamb. Unfortunately, the Christians will not recognize the Lamb. They will call him the Antichrist. When he calls the people who come are his sheep. He said so. My sheep hear my voice. says, they shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more. Watch this. Hunger no. Right. Wipe away all tears. I'll try that one. I may have to go to Google to find this. Ah! Oh, look at here. Now right here, it's he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death, no sorrow, no crying or pain. Alright, so then if we look at Isaiah 25 and verse 8, he will swallow up death with victory, and Jehovah Elohim will wipe away their tears from off their face, and the rebuke of his people shall he remove from all the earth. So this right here, this rebuke, will be removed. And they will be given, instead of the yellow rags of what is her name? Synagogue. And instead of the yellow star, they are going to be given white robes. The rebuke of his people shall he take away from off all the earth. Jehovah has spoken. Now, where was I? I was on a roll here. Wipe away alright, that's not the it's not what I was looking for. Where was I? Right here. Okay, let's try again. They shall hunger no more, neither shall they thirst, neither shall the sun light on them. It is somewhere in the prophets. But right here, you see right here it says, Jehovah shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and you know what it's referring to. I just showed it to you. Isaiah 25. I just showed it to you. It's referring to Israel. So, this great multitude, who are they? Who are they? I will show you who they are. It's in Isaiah 66. No, wait a minute. Isaiah 4. I'll go to Isaiah 4 and 66. Maybe I'll just use one of these. Yeah, I'll just use one of these. Isaiah 4 first. It's 14. For Jehovah will have mercy on Jacob, and will choose Israel again, and place them back in their own land. And strangers will be with them. There will be some Gentiles that are taken out of all the Gentiles, kindreds, and tongues, along with the rest of Israel, and they will be grafted in, as Paul said in Romans 11. Read the whole chapter to understand. You see, Christians claim that the Jews must join their church and confess Jesus to be saved, but that's false. The Gentile must be grafted in to one of the branches of Israel, and the name Jesus cannot save anybody because the name Jesus is false. How do I know this? The name Jesus comes from two sources, Iesous in Greek and Jesus in English. When Paul was speaking to the Greeks on Mars Hill, he said, "You are unknowingly giving honor to the real one, the one you have no name for," which excluded every name the Greeks had for the greatest, or every name that they had was excluded. And since Iesous is a Greek idol, a Greek name, that name is excluded. No, Jesus, Iesous, Jesus can't save anyone. There's only one name under the sky. That name is Yehoshua. Get it right. So, he will again choose Israel, set them in their own land, and strangers will be grafted among them, and they will cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people, that is the Gentiles, who are not associated with Israel, will take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Israel, or in the land of Jehovah, for servants and handmaids. You see, after the nuclear exchange and the meteors and the great earthquakes, and the Gentiles are completely humiliated on the land of Israel when they invade, there's going to be 3 years of no rain. Revelation 11. And every kind of plague, so often as the two witnesses mentioned in the 5th seal and in Isaiah 66. So choose. And they're going to force the Gentiles to bring all Israel back home. And will take captives whose captives they were. The Euros will have no land to live in. The Gentiles will have no land to live in. The lands of the Gentiles, especially Japheth, because it says so right there in Genesis 13, that the sons of Japheth will go from having the widest tents, and in the end living in the tents of Shem, because they've been completely displaced and have to be servants of Israel. You see, Israel is going to be a kingdom of priests. Israel will become the Levites, so to speak. Well, they will not have to do all the hard labor. The Gentiles are going to have to do the hard labor. And I might also add that the Gentiles are going to need to be healed from all the nuclear fallout. Well, there is a healing that's going to occur. I do want to go to Isaiah 66, if I can remember. maybe what I'll do is I'll go to Revelation 21 here, and then 21 or 22. The river of life. So there will be the tree of life that are growing because the river of life is proceeding from the throne of Jehovah, which bear 12 manner of fruit and yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the Gentiles. Why? What do you think? Now, I want to go to Isaiah 66. Also, again, talking about the two witnesses. Is it? Okay. So this is talking about the promises goes back to Israel and the curses go to the Gentiles. And then here, verse 15, Jehovah will come with fire, with a fiery chariot, like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. By fire and by his sword will Jehovah judge flesh, and the slain of Jehovah shall be many. And he's speaking of the Gentiles right here, because Gentiles do this. I know their works and their thoughts, and it shall come that I will gather all the Gentiles in tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. They're not going to have lands to live in, because of the 3.5 years of no rain. And all the plagues have left their lands, and all the nuclear weapons that they have launched have left their lands desolate for 1,000 years, is my guess. And I will set a sign among them. I will send escapees. I will send fugitives to the Gentiles. Read Revelation 11. Those are the two witnesses. To the far west, bring my people home. First, Isaiah 60 verse 8 says, the ships of Tarshish come first, and we see here once again Tarshish comes first. Pul and Lud, the warrior nations, to Tubal, to Greece, to the coastlands of Greece, to the coastlands of Rome. Not that have not heard my fame, no, to hear my fame, to see my glory. And they, the two witnesses, the escapees, the fugitives, will declare his glory among the Gentiles with every plague they can think of, including 3.5 years of no rain. Once again, read Revelation 11. And they shall bring your brethren for an offering unto Jehovah out of all the Gentiles. Upon what? It says horses. Upon birds. If you read Isaiah 60, verse 7, 8, and 9, you will clearly see that these are flying ships. In chariots. So, on things that fly, on things that roll, in covered wagons, cars, buses, trains, anything that's available. And even mules and swift beasts probably coming in from Syria. To my holy mountain, Jerusalem, says Jehovah, because the children of Israel will come in as an offering in a clean vessel. So those nations who bring the children of Israel back home, it will be to Jehovah as an offering of appeasement. Into the house of Jehovah. And the people of Israel are going to be for priests and Levites. Because it is written, and it says, as for a new heaven and new earth I will make and shall remain before me. Now, I will go over the kingdom of priests real quick, and then I'll be finished. Kingdom, it just says kings and priests. Priests. Or kingdom of, maybe I should put kingdom of priests. Of priests. Right. You will be for me. This was the promise that he made when they first took them out of the land of Egypt. Israel shall be a kingdom of priests. He's not giving up on this. This will be done. Every word he has uttered shall be done. You shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. That's what he meant. That's what he said. He shall have his way. So, my message to all the Jews out there, my mishpacha, get ready. Your redemption draws near. Because these things are about to happen. To the Christians, confusion and anguish is about to happen to you. Because you have lorded it over the Jew. You have bullied the Jew. You raped the Jew. You pillaged the Jew. You murdered the Jew. You, every one of you who declare yourself to be a Christian, you have done this. And therefore you shall receive a great judgment that's to come upon the Gentiles, as we just read about. But to the Jew, to my mishpacha, salvation is coming to you. Just remember this. There is no salvation here. There will only be salvation in Mount Zion, Jerusalem. Read Joel 2, the last few verses, you will see it right there. There will be nowhere else. I tried to explain it to my neighbor, AJW. He said he's staying right here. No, he's not. He's not going to stay here. There's going to be an easy way to come to Jerusalem, and then there's going to be a hard way. I suggest that everyone join the Jews and go the easy way, because you're not staying here in these lands. These lands are going to be, the lands of the Gentiles are going to be uninhabitable. there will be new land that rises up in the Mediterranean Sea to where the Mediterranean Sea will not exist. The land of Israel will cover at least 750 miles in each direction. But that's another video.